Barron Trump's Starlit journey, helping a stranger in need. The night was uncommonly still, the kind of quiet that seemed to hold its breath, as if the world itself was waiting for something extraordinary to happen. Barron Trump, now 17, walked along the winding path that cut through the sprawling estate's gardens, his sneakers scuffing softly against the gravel. The sky above was a tapestry of stars, each one a pinprick of light that seemed to pulse with secrets. Barron had always been drawn to the night, its vastness, its mysteries, the way it made the ordinary world feel like the edge of a dream. Tonight, though, something felt different. The air was charged, like the moment before a storm, and Barron's heart beat a little faster, though he couldn't say why that he wasn't supposed to be out here. The estate was secure, of course, but his family preferred he stay closer to the main house after dark. Barron, however, had never been one for rules that didn't make sense to him. He wasn't reckless, not like some of the boys he'd known at school, always chasing thrills without a thought. Barron was different. He was a thinker, a watcher, someone who saw patterns where others saw chaos. His mother said he had an old soul, his father called him a strategist. Barron just thought he was, himself. As he rounded a bend in the path, the hedge-lined walkway opened into a small clearing where a stone fountain stood, its water catching the moonlight in silvery ripples. Barron paused, his breath catching. There, sitting on the edge of the fountain, was a figure he hadn't noticed before, a man, or perhaps not quite a man, dressed in an odd assortment of clothes that seemed to belong to another time. A long, tattered cloak hung from his shoulders, and his boots were caked with mud that glistened strangely, as if it came from a place where the earth itself was different. The man's face was shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but his eyes glinted like twin stars when they met Barron's. "Young traveler," the man said, his voice low and melodic, like a song carried on the wind. "I've been waiting for you." Barron froze, his hand instinctively tightening around the flashlight in his pocket. He wasn't afraid, not exactly, but he was cautious. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady despite the sudden racing of his pulse. "And why are you on our property?" The man smiled, a faint, wistful curve of his lips. "My name is Calix, and I am lost. Not just in this place, but in time itself. I saw you in a vision, Barron Trump. You are the one who can help me find my way home." Barron's first instinct was to turn and walk away. This could be a prank, or worse, some kind of trap. But something in Calix's eyes, something ancient and earnest, held him in place. The man didn't move, didn't threaten, just sat there, his hands folded in his lap, waiting. Barron took a step closer, his curiosity outweighing his caution. "A vision?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "You're saying you're some kind of time traveler?" Calix tilted his head, as if considering the term. "Not by choice. I am a wanderer, caught in the currents of time. I was pulled from my home, a place far from here, in a time not your own, and now I seek a way back. The stars led me to you." Barron glanced up at the sky, half expecting to see some cosmic sign. The stars looked the same as always, bright and distant. "Why me?" he asked, crossing his arms. "I'm just a kid." Calix's smile widened. "You are more than you know, Barron. The stars do not choose lightly. You have a mind that sees beyond the surface, a heart that feels for others, and a courage that has yet to be tested. Will you help me?" Barron hesitated. He wasn't one for grand gestures or impulsive decisions, but there was something about Calix's story that resonated with him. Maybe it was the idea of being lost, of needing to find a way home. Barron had felt that way sometimes, not in a physical sense, but in the quiet moments when he wondered who he was meant to be. "What do I have to do?" he asked finally. Calix stood, his cloak rustling like leaves in a breeze. "We must find the nexus, a point where time converges. It is hidden in this world, guarded by puzzles and trials. Only one with a clear mind and a true heart can unlock its secrets. Will you walk this path with me?" Barron nodded, a spark of excitement igniting in his chest. Let's do it. The journey began with a map, or rather, the absence of one. Calix explained that the Nexus wasn't a place you could find with a compass or a GPS. It was a convergence of energies, a place where the fabric of time was thin, and it moved, shifting with the stars. To find it, they would need to follow a series of clues hidden in the world around them, clues that only Barron could decipher. The first clue, Calix said, pulling a small, metallic object from his cloak, is this. He held out a disc, no larger than a coin, etched with intricate symbols that glowed faintly under the moonlight. It is a star key, one of 3 needed to open the Nexus. Each key is tied to a trial, and each trial tests a different virtue, wit, courage, and empathy. Barron took the disc, turning it over in his hands. The symbols were unlike anything he'd ever seen, swirling lines and geometric shapes that seemed to shift as he looked at them. So, what's the first trial? He asked. Calix pointed to the fountain. The water holds the answer. Look closely, and let your mind see what your eyes cannot. Barron frowned, stepping closer to the fountain. The water was still, reflecting the stars like a mirror. He stared into it, expecting to see his own reflection, but instead, the surface shimmered, and an image formed, a stone archway covered in vines, standing alone in a field. The archway pulsed with the same faint glow as the star key. Barron blinked, and the image vanished, leaving only his reflection. Did you see that? He asked, turning to Calix. The traveler nodded. The Arch of Whispers. It is the gateway to the first trial. You must find it before dawn, or the Nexus will slip further away. Barron's mind raced. He knew the estate like the back of his hand, but he'd never seen an archway like that. Still, something told him it wasn't far. There's a field about a mile from here, near the old oak grove, he said. It's the only place that makes sense. Calix's eyes gleamed. Lead the way, Barron. The walk to the field was quiet, save for the crunch of gravel and the occasional hoot of an owl. Barron kept the star key in his pocket, its faint warmth reassuring against his palm. Calix walked beside him, his steps silent, as if he were part of the night itself. Barron couldn't help but glance at him, wondering who, or what, he really was. A time traveler? A spirit? Something else entirely? He pushed the questions aside. For now, he had a puzzle to solve. The field came into view, bathed in moonlight. At its center stood the archway from the vision, its stones ancient and weathered, covered in vines that seemed to pulse with life. Barron approached it cautiously, the star key growing warmer in his pocket. This is it, he said, more to himself than to Calix. As he stepped closer, the air around the archway shimmered, and a voice, not Calix's, but deep and resonant, echoed through the night. To pass the trial of wit, you must answer the riddle of the stars. Speak the name of the one who guides the lost, and the path will open. Barron's heart sank. A riddle? He was good at patterns, at strategy, but riddles were tricky. He looked up at the sky, the stars twinkling mockingly. The one who guides the lost, he muttered. His mind raced through myths, legends, anything that might fit. Polaris, the North Star, came to mind. It had guided sailors for centuries. But that felt too simple. He turned to Calix. Any hints? Calix shook his head. The answer lies within you. Trust your mind. Barron took a deep breath, closing his eyes. He thought about being lost, about needing guidance. His thoughts drifted to his childhood, to the stories his mother used to tell him about angels and guardians. One name stood out, Raphael, the archangel known for guiding travelers. It was a long shot, but it felt right. Raphael, he said aloud, his voice steady. The archway hummed, the vines parting like a curtain. A soft glow emanated from the center, revealing a narrow path that hadn't been there before. Barron exhaled, a grin spreading across his face. I did it. Calix clapped him on the shoulder. Well done, Barron. The trial of wit is yours. But 2 trials remain. The path through the archway led to a forest Barron had never seen before, though it was only a mile from his home. The trees were tall and gnarled, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out all but slivers of moonlight. The air was cooler here, thick with the scent of moss and earth. Barron's flashlight flickered, as if the batteries were suddenly drained, and he stuffed it back in his pocket, relying on the star key's faint glow to light the way. The second trial is courage, Calix said as they walked. It will test your heart, not your mind. Be ready. Barron nodded, though his stomach twisted. Courage wasn't something he thought about often. He wasn't a coward, he'd faced bullies, tough exams, and the weight of his family's name, but this felt different. This was unknown. The path opened into a clearing where a single tree stood, its trunk massive and twisted, its branches heavy with glowing orbs that pulsed like tiny stars. At the base of the tree was a stone pedestal, and on it lay a second star key, identical to the first but glowing a deep crimson. As Barron approached, the ground trembled, and a shadow rose from the earth, a creature made of smoke and flame, its eyes burning like coals. Who dares seek the key of courage? The creature roared, its voice shaking the air. Barron's heart pounded, but he stepped forward, the first star key clutched tightly in his hand. I do, he said, his voice only slightly shaking. I'm here to help my friend. The creature's eyes narrowed. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action in its presence. Face me, and prove your heart. Before Barron could respond, the creature lunged, its fiery claws slashing through the air. Barron dove to the side, rolling across the grass. His mind raced, searching for a way to fight something that wasn't solid. The star key in his hand pulsed, and an idea struck him. If the keys were tied to the trials, maybe they held power over the guardians. That he held up the first star key, its glow flaring brightly. I passed the trial of wit, he shouted. I'm not here to fight you, I'm here to prove myself. The creature paused, its flames dimming slightly. Speak, then, it said. What is courage to you? Barron's mind raced. He thought of his family, of the challenges they'd faced, of the times he'd wanted to speak up but held back. Courage is doing what's right, even when it's hard, he said. It's helping someone, even if you're scared, because you know it's the right thing to do. The creature studied him, its eyes searching his soul. Then, slowly, it dissolved into smoke, leaving the crimson star key on the pedestal. Barron let out a shaky breath, his legs trembling as he walked forward to claim it. Calix's hand rested on his shoulder. You are stronger than you know, he said softly. The final trial was empathy, and it was the one Barron dreaded most. Wit and courage were things he could grasp, but empathy was messier, harder to define. The path led them to a lake, its surface so still it seemed like glass. At its center, a small island glowed with a soft, golden light, and on the island stood a figure, a child, no older than 10, dressed in clothes as strange as Calix's. The trial of empathy, Calix said, his voice heavy. You must cross the lake and help the one who waits. But beware, the lake reflects your heart. If your intentions are not pure, it will pull you under. Barron swallowed hard. He wasn't sure what pure intentions meant, but he knew he wanted to help Calix, and now this child. He stepped into the water, expecting it to be cold, but it was warm, almost comforting. As he waded deeper, images began to form in the water, memories, moments from his life. He saw himself as a younger boy, ignored by classmates who didn't understand him. He saw his parents, their faces lined with worry. He saw moments when he'd been kind, and moments when he'd been selfish. The water grew heavier, tugging at his legs. Doubt crept in. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he failed? But then he thought of the child on the island, alone and waiting. He pushed forward, focusing on that image, letting it anchor him. The water parted, and he stepped onto the island, his clothes dry as if he'd never been submerged. The child looked up at him, her eyes wide and frightened. I'm lost, she said. I don't know how to get home. Barron knelt beside her, his heart aching. I know what it's like to feel lost, he said. But I'm here now. I'll help you. The child's eyes softened, and she reached into her pocket, pulling out the third star key, this one glowing a soft blue. You're kind, she said. Take this. It's yours. Barron took the key, and the island began to glow brighter, the light enveloping them. When it faded, he was back by the fountain, Calix beside him, the 3-star keys in his hand. With the keys in hand, Calix led Barron to the Nexus, a shimmering portal hidden in the garden, invisible until the keys were united. As the portal opened, Calix turned to Barron, his eyes filled with gratitude. You have done what few could, he said. You've shown wit, courage, and empathy. You've given me a way home. Barron smiled, though a part of him felt a pang of sadness. Will I see you again? Calix's smile was enigmatic. Time is a river, Barron. It flows in strange ways. But know this, you have a gift. Use it well. With that, Calix stepped through the portal, and it closed behind him, leaving Barron alone under the starlit sky. He looked down at the star keys, now dull and lifeless, and slipped them into his pocket. The night was still, but it no longer felt heavy. It felt full of possibility. As he walked back to the house, Barron felt different, stronger, surer. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he could face it. The stars above seemed to wink at him, as if they, too, knew his journey was just beginning.